been one crazy year, hasn't it? I mean, there's been a whole lot of change, and I've certainly had my fill of it. I moved a whole lot. There have been definite stops in production. I mean, I had that, 4-month, 5-month stopgap in the middle. Heck, I'm amazed that the bookshelves are back up. I mean, don't they look nice? Even the green screen looks nice. Okay, it looks like crap, but this is really about change. Well, more like evolution. I really want to evolve the show beyond low production values. I know, you don't like the term. I joke about it way too much. It gets annoying, but holy crap, it's Dragon Quest! Anybody remember this part? This is actually part of the original Dragon Quest, or rather, Dragon Warrior in the North American release. Here you're kind of just going through the motions, after all. You're trying to defeat the Dragon Lord's trying to give you a choice, and that's actually the interesting part. You're given a choice. Most of the time, you're going to say no, because, well, you're here to defeat the Dragon Lord, and continue the series that you had no idea would happen. I mean, if you say yes, there wouldn't be a Dragon Warrior 2, but what would happen if you said yes?
Well, according to this game, this is what happens. The whole land goes to hell in a handbasket as the hero turns it over to the Dragon Lord. That hero ends up with half of it to rule, and darkness pretty much covers everything. You are an unnamed soul who wakes up many years after this incident. You were charged by Rubis, the goddess, to rebuild Alfgard so that the next scion of Erdrick,
Because it is always Erdrick,
can come back and take his place in history as the hero that destroys the Dragon Lord, bringing peace back to Alfgard.
and by rebuild, I mean literally rebuild. Like, dump your Legos out of your tub and put together that castle from 1995 without the use of the instructions rebuild.
A lot of people will claim that this is a cash-in on the Minecraft craze, and I can see somewhat how they can come to that comparison. The main gimmick is that you're rebuilding most of the cities in the Kingdom of Alfgard, but it's literally done block by block, and your materials are found all around, either by whacking the ground with a hammer, or by defeating enemies, by whacking them into oblivion with a hammer.
Yeah, I know, there are a bunch of different weapons in the game too, but you know what? It's actually nice to know that you can use the Jeremy Clarkson solution of using a hammer to solve a problem. And there are plenty of problems you're going to be able to solve, let me tell you.
Building things are done with these workstations, usually starting with something basic like a tree stump or a mason's workstation. Later on, you can build other stations that let you make more advanced items, like a forge or an herbalist's cauldron. Each station has its use, and the areas you arrive in showcase how each of these stations will help you. It's also used to progress the story and help condense the whole rebuild Alfgard thing into small, more manageable chunks. Speaking of building, each area does task you with rebuilding each major city from the old game, as I mentioned before, and you're given help with these little blueprints. While the blueprints are nice, it's also nice to know that you're given free reign as to how you can place the rooms in the city. You're given a nice plot of land to work with, and by the time you're done, you'll have room for all the required rooms to progress the story, and possibly a little more to boot. While the blueprints themselves don't cross over from chapter to chapter, the room recipes do, meaning that if you need to remember how to construct a certain type of room, You can look it up and then just make it yourself.
In fact, if you do it right, it's actually possible to build multiple story buildings if you want. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here.
You want Dragon Quest charm? You got it. Since the whole game is based out of the original NES game's setting, Dragon Quest Builders definitely takes that world and makes you feel like you're really rebuilding Alefgard one block at a time. In fact, while enemies and bosses from other Dragon Quest games do appear, all of the enemies from the original Dragon Quest reappear, and in fact they use those particular designs instead of the updated ones used in more recent Dragon Quest titles. For me, it was neat to see the old, and I feel more menacing knight designs instead of the somewhat dumpy art style for knights or armors, recently seen in Dragon Quest Heroes. Missions and quests send you out into the world to progress the story. Here it feels more like The Legend of Zelda, as you're out and about attempting to find more materials and whack any enemies along the way. It's not quite a top-down perspective, as you do have control of the camera, but the combat is simple, and you don't have a whole lot of pesky menus bogging it down. It's really easy to just wander around and kill enemies. In fact, this does help a little bit to calm down the grind. What grind, you might ask? You know which grind.
In fact, grinding is probably going to be the least of your worries when playing this game. But it's still a problem.
For those of you who don't know what I meant by grind, I'm talking about the JRPG grind. But instead of grinding for experience, you're grinding for materials. And unless you have lists laying around telling you what to build and a map as to where everything is, you'll get lost pretty quick. I didn't really use the waypoint functions, as I really don't like to be specific with spots. Exploration takes a really long time, and unfortunately for me, I don't have the patience or energy I had when I was 10. Or when I was 23 and stupid and decided to do a 15-hour Final Fantasy X level up grind. But I really found that this game needed a better map, and by this, I mean the area maps from the main campaign. Now, I can understand the lack of a map for the Terra Incognita area, which is a sort of sandbox which allows you to create large buildings and, in some cases, some very creative roller coasters and post them online for you to see and experience. I do think that some of that stuff is randomly generated. However, the maps for the regular game are set, and I really think a map would be handy. Waypoints don't really work too well, as I told you before, and it really comes down to strict memorization of where things are so you can get the resources you want. Now here's something I didn't think I'd mention here: the music. No, it's not that the music is bad. In fact, it's very good, and hearing all of Koichi Sugiyama's music is always something pleasant. In fact, it's even better since most of the music is from the original Dragon Quest, just orchestrated again. However, the problem is that with the exception of the title theme, which is actually different, all the other music seems to have been lifted from Dragon Quest Heroes. Now, this isn't bad either, as the music from Dragon Quest Heroes was also quite good. But since I'm nitpicking here, it almost seemed like a shortcut to get the musical score done quickly. The other thing I'd actually like would be a real new Game Plus mode, one where you could possibly create just about everything you've learned in the original playthrough. While you do retain all the recipes you learn in your menu, it's not actually possible to create certain rooms or items that could possibly work a lot better for you. It would be neat to see the different workstations made available in later areas appear in the first chapter, for instance, and that would definitely add to the replay value of the game.
So, really, this whole review was just an excuse for me to yell out a line from something that I've wanted to produce for several years. And I gotta say, it felt nice being able to scream it, but I can't really think about things I want to produce in the future. I gotta use a line for a show that you're watching right now. Is Dragon Quest Builders worth your cash?
Dragon Quest Builders is available on the PlayStation 4 in both digital and physical forms, and surprisingly enough, the PlayStation Vita, although it's only in digital distribution in the United States. The PS4 version goes for around $60 no matter which form you get, and the Vita version goes for around $40. There are physical copies of the Vita version around, but they're imports, and you're looking at least $45 to get one of those, even if it is in English. It basically comes down to paying full price on a system that's easy to get to, or get it for a bit of a discount, but it's on a system that, while portable, isn't really that popular anymore. The shortness of the game is really the killer here. Even with my grinding, the full game isn't that long, and the monotony of the grinding will be, for some, a deal breaker. I would personally wait for a sale, but I actually think it's worth about 30 to 40 bucks.
Dragon Quest Builders answers a question that almost no one asked and created a separate and hopefully small alternate timeline that's way less confusing than anything The Legend of Zelda could come up with. Now, there's been alternate dimension jumping before. I mean, that's what Dragon Quest Heroes was, for crying out loud. But Dragon Quest Builders gives a familiar area with new mechanics, all with the charm of a slime. Newcomers to the game will probably try and figure out why it borrows a bit from Minecraft, but people that are familiar with the series will get hit right in nostalgic feels. For me, it was really fun and a great excuse to yell out, "Holy crap, it's Dragon Quest," before the end of the year.